Imagine having a really big collection of your favorite things and displaying them all in one spot. What would that look like? Maybe you would have a special shelf, or perhaps an entire room devoted to your collection. Now imagine you collect really large objects, let's say English manor houses. How would you display a collection of mansions all in one place? Hi everyone, Ken here. Today we are exploring the Virginia House, a collection of disassembled and reassembled English manor houses. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode of This House. When Alexander Weddell began courting Virginia Chase Steedman, the two quickly realized their potential to become a power couple. They had shared a passion for history and historic preservation. In 1923, they tied the knot and set out to create and curate a cultural legacy together. Naturally, for a newlywed couple, they wanted to start their lives together by purchasing their first home. But not just any home would do. It had to be ripe with history and aged with the stories of generations past. That's when they caught wind of an English manor house known as Hawk's Nest going up for sale. Hawk's Nest had been constructed in Warwick, England, following the dismantling of a monastery in 1536. The estate had entertained notable royals such as Queen Elizabeth I and had played host to Queen Anne's royal gardener. This was exactly the type of house the Weddells were looking for, but it was in the wrong country. They wanted to live in the U.S. state of Virginia. They decided to purchase Hawk's Nest with the intent of dismantling it and reassembling it stateside. This caused cultural backlash as members of British Parliament attempted to invalidate the sale of the home, calling it an act of vandalism against UK's heritage. The Weddells explained that they intended to rebuild the manor and preserve it for future generations in the United States. Enough members of Parliament were convinced by their argument, and the sale of the manor was allowed to go through. As the process of dismantling the house began, it was found to be lacking in structural integrity, making it hazardous to disassemble. Using carefully calculated measures, an explosive was placed in the house with the hopes that it would knock the large stone walls loose, making it safer to continue disassembling the manor. To everyone's surprise, many of the walls detached from the stone structure completely intact, which made the entire process of disassembling and reassembling much easier. The following year, in 1926, the pieces of the house were driven to ports and shipped to Virginia. Then the Weddells' plan changed. They hired architect Henry Grant Morse to gather architectural salvage and entire rooms from other English manor houses and ship them back to the United States. The architect was to blend the various manor houses together to create a cohesive design for a new home to be built from old parts. The resulting structure became Tudor-Bethel in appearance, with elaborate strapwork in its upper gables. The mansion's distinct bodies from various manors were joined with a porte-cochere marked by a tower with parapet walls. As you traveled around the house, winding through its gardens, you would be met with the faces of reconfigured English manor houses. Some of the facades were simpler, with clean cuts of stone and limestone lintels at the windows, while other faces were decorated with elaborate balustrade, Gothic tracery, and stone relief work half a millennia old. The elaborate gardens, designed by landscape architect Charles Gillette, took over 20 years to complete, and, at their prime, boasted over 1,000 individual species of plants curated from around the world. Dotted throughout the landscape, offering vista views, sculptures and fountains could be found in both the formal and informal gardens, with every path leading to a cultural artifact with its own story rich in historical merit. Entering the home, you would arrive in the Great Hall. The Weddells finished out the room with architectural salvage sold to them by famed Gilded Age antique dealer Charles Devine. The 12th century oak wall paneling was salvaged from the Warwick Priory, and the grand staircase was reassembled from a 17th century English manor house. As we begin making our way deeper into the house, we will notice portraits of prominent American figures displayed on the walls. When the Weddells set out to build their mansion, they envisioned one day deeding the property to the Virginia Historical Society to be used as its headquarters and as a history museum. With this in mind, it was important to have grand rooms which could accommodate future generations of museum visitors. The withdrawing room, as it was called, was finished out with 16th century wood paneling below an elaborate ceiling boasting both a rose and soleil and fleur-de-lis patterns. The dining room became a mix of old and new, as leather chairs were reproduced in a style typical of the 16th century. On the wall, a massive tapestry depicts a hunt, which was a common theme to display in the dining rooms of the time. No surface in the mansion was left unadorned, as even the most common items, such as radiators, were graced with an artistic flair. Upstairs we will find the library, with overflowing built-in bookshelves rising below a steeply pitched ceiling. The library quickly became the heart of the Weddells' home, as they were known to entertain and read books. Mr. Weddell spent a large portion of his time writing and editing history books and organizing historical documents and prints to preserve Virginia's history through publications. The curation of the history in the house seemed to have no end, as the Weddells decided to replicate George Washington's ancestral home, Sulgrave Manor, by the incorporation of the Sulgrave bedroom. In 1943, Mr. Weddell's dedication to historical preservation earned him the title of President of the Virginia Historical Society. He and his wife hosted large meetings for the society in their home, as they spearheaded efforts to accumulate as many historical documents as possible to paint a full picture of the state's rich history. Unfortunately, the Weddells' time was cut short. As they were traveling cross-country, their train derailed in Missouri, and they both lost their lives. Just as they had intended, the house was willed to the Virginia Historical Society, which continues to keep it open to the public as the Virginia House. Which room was your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode of This House. I would also like to take a moment to say a very special thank you to our This House supporters whose names you can see on screen right now. For just $5 per month, you can see your name on the screen and show your support for the production of these videos. I'll see you next time on This House.